Think of a moment when everything went wrong, a plan crumbled, an expectation was shattered, or an unforeseen crisis arrived. Our first instinct is always resistance. We clench our teeth and think, this shouldn't be happening. But what if that resistance is exactly what keeps us trapped? What if the very event you are fighting against is the exact material you need to build your strength and grow? In our previous journey together, we explored the foundation of Stoic philosophy, the dichotomy of control. We learned from Epictetus that much of human suffering does not come from events themselves, but from our refusal to accept reality as it is. We discussed how acceptance is the vital first step toward inner freedom. However, there is a subtle danger in how the modern world understands the word acceptance. For many people, accepting sounds like giving up. It sounds like resignation. You lose a job, a relationship ends, a long-term project fails, and you tell yourself with a heavy sigh, well, it is what it is, I just have to accept it. This is passive acceptance. It carries the heavy weight of defeat. You tolerate the present moment, but in the back of your mind, you are still arguing with the past. You still carry resentment, secretly wishing that life had followed the script you wrote for it. Resignation is like carrying a heavy boulder on your back and deciding to simply stop complaining about the weight. Yes, you have stopped wasting energy yelling at the sky, but the boulder is still crushing you. The ancient philosophers, however, were not interested in turning us into silent victims of fate. They did not want us to be human beings who merely endure life with our heads bowed down. They invited us toward a state of mind that is much higher, much more radical, and infinitely more powerful. They invited us to take the next step, to not merely tolerate the boulder, but to use it to build something new. It is not just about stopping the fight against reality. It is about embracing it entirely. It is about looking adversity in the eye and saying, I do not just accept that you are here, I am going to use you. To understand this profound transition, we need to look at the words of a man who knew pressure in a way few of us ever will. Marcus Aurelius was not a cloistered academic. He was the emperor of Rome during one of the most unstable periods of the empire. He faced relentless wars on the borders, betrayals by people he trusted deeply, the tragic death of several of his children, and a devastating global pandemic that decimated the population. If anyone had reasons to feel that life was profoundly unfair, it was him. Yet, in his private journal, which we know today as Meditations, he did not write about how to endure pain with bitterness. He wrote about how to transform it. He used a metaphor that remains one of the most powerful images in the history of human thought. He observed that a small, weak fire can be easily extinguished by a sudden gust of wind. When we are weak internally, the difficulties of life, the wind, blow us out. We lose our motivation, our kindness, our hope. But, Marcus Aurelius noted, when you build a roaring, powerful fire, the wind does not extinguish it. On the contrary, the fire consumes the wind. The fire takes whatever is thrown into it, wet wood, dry leaves, garbage, debris, and turns it all into flame. The obstacle becomes the very fuel for the fire. This is the essence of a concept that, centuries later, the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche would call Amor Fati, the love of fate. Amor Fati does not mean naive optimism. It does not mean pretending that a tragedy is a wonderful thing. It does not mean pasting a fake smile on your face while something terrible happens. Authentic philosophy never demands that you deny your pain or your humanity. Grief, sorrow, the initial sting of frustration, all of this is entirely natural. The difference lies in what you do in the very next moment. Amor Fati is the profound decision that, since reality has already happened, you are not just going to tolerate it, you are going to extract meaning from it. It is the attitude of looking at a door that has been violently slammed in your face and deciding that this door needed to be closed so that you could finally look in another direction. Why is Amor Fati so incredibly difficult to practice? Because all of us, on some level, live under the illusion of the perfect path. We create very specific mental narratives about how our lives should unfold. We believe that success means getting from point A to point B in a straight line, without any interruptions. We believe that happiness means the absence of pain, the absence of conflict, and the absence of delays. When life deviates from this straight line, when we get sick, when we suffer an injustice, when our plans are delayed, we view it as a glitch in the system. We believe that something has gone terribly wrong with the universe. But the Stoics remind us of an uncomfortable yet liberating truth. Life is not a straight line. Life is the sum of all events, both the predicted and the unforeseen. What we call interruptions are not pauses in our life. They are our life. When you are stuck in a severe traffic jam and you become infuriated, your mind is telling you, I should be at home relaxing. My real life begins when I get home. But the Stoic would say, your life is happening right now, inside this car. How are you going to live it? When a coworker criticizes you unfairly and you boil with anger, your mind says, this person is getting in the way of my peace. The Stoic would say, this person is not in the way of your path. They are your path today. The absolute genius of Marcus Aurelius is captured in one of his most famous maxims. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Think about the depth of that realization. What is blocking you is actually directing you. If you are trying to become a more patient person, how do you think patience is developed? By reading books about calmness in a quiet, empty room? No. Patience is only developed when you encounter someone who is absolutely impossible to deal with. Courage is not forged when things are safe and guaranteed. It is only born in the exact moment when fear is present and uncertainty is absolute. Resilience does not exist in comfort. It is only demanded when you fall down. Therefore, when difficulties appear, they are not pulling you away from your purpose. They are providing the exact training regimen required for you to develop the virtues of your character. Reality is not your enemy, it is your training ground. Let us bring this down to the reality of our modern daily lives, which are fast, relentless, and filled with invisible pressures. How, in practice, do we stop fighting reality and start practicing Amor Fati? The first step is to completely change the question we ask when things go wrong. The default question of a bruised ego is always, why is this happening to me? This is the voice of the victim. It assumes that you have been unfairly singled out by the universe to suffer. It leaves you paralyzed, looking backward, secretly hoping that the past will change. The practice of Amor Fati begins by replacing that question with three much more useful questions. What is this revealing about me? What does this moment demand of me? How can I use this? Imagine you have worked for months on a project, only to see it canceled at the last minute by a corporate decision completely outside your control. The common response is bitterness. It is spending weeks complaining, feeling undervalued, and letting cynicism take root in your heart. The response through Amor Fati begins with a pause. You feel the sting of frustration, but you do not let it govern your actions. You ask yourself, how can I use this? Perhaps this cancellation forces you to reevaluate where you are investing your career energy. Perhaps the way you handle this defeat in front of your colleagues demonstrates a level of integrity, grace, and professionalism that no easy success ever could. You transform the external defeat into an internal victory. The project failed, but your character was upgraded. The fire consumed the obstacle. Imagine a relationship that comes to an end. The untrained mind clings to denial. It tries to force the door back open, loses its dignity begging for something that is already gone, or it closes itself off in a thick armor of anger and distrust, swearing never to be vulnerable again. The practitioner of Amor Fati accepts the profound pain of the ending, but uses it. They use the empty space to rediscover themselves. They use the sting of rejection to forge their own independence. They understand that this cycle had to close so that a new space could be cleared. Even in the minor, trivial annoyances of daily life, this philosophy has a transformative power. Your flight is delayed by 3 hours? Excellent. That is unexpected time to read that book you have been putting off. Someone was incredibly rude to you at the store? Excellent. That is a practical opportunity to test whether your peace of mind depends on the manners of a total stranger, or if it truly belongs to you. The weather is terrible on the day of your outdoor trip? Excellent. It is a real-time test of your adaptability. This is what it means to embrace fate. It is the absolute refusal to be a victim of circumstance. It is taking total, radical responsibility for how you respond to the hand you are dealt. It might seem like there is a contradiction here. If Stoicism is all about focusing only on what we can control, how does Amor Fati ask us to embrace fate, which is exactly the thing we cannot control? The answer is subtle, but it is the master key to lasting peace. You do not control the events of fate, but you have absolute control over the story you tell yourself about those events. We suffer intensely because we judge things far too quickly. We say, "This is a tragedy, this ruined my life, this is the worst thing that could happen." But we do not have the vision of the whole. We do not know the future. Think back on your own life. How many times has an event that seemed like an absolute disaster in the moment revealed itself, years later, to be the most important turning point of your story? That job you lost forced you to finally start the business you love. That health crisis forced you to change your destructive habits and taught you to value every single morning. That painful rejection cleared the path for the right person to eventually enter your life. If the past proves to us that we are terrible at judging what is good or bad in the long run, why do we continue trying to judge the present moment so harshly? Amor Fati is the humility to admit, I do not know if this event is ultimately good or bad. I only know that it is, and I decide that whatever it is, I will make it useful. This realization frees up an immense amount of psychological energy. When you stop mentally fighting against what is, all that energy that was being burned up in anger, complaining, and denial comes rushing back to you. Your mind becomes clear. Your actions become focused. You move in harmony with the flow of life, rather than in endless opposition to it. As Epictetus taught, do not demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do happen, and your life will go smoothly. This serenity is not the calm of a dead, stagnant pond. It is the serenity of a deep, powerful river. When a river encounters a massive rock in its path, it does not stop. It does not argue with the rock. It does not resent the rock for being in the way. It simply flows over it or carves a path around it. The rock, which appeared to be an obstacle, actually creates the rapids. It ends up giving the river its power, its speed, and its voice. How do we take this philosophy, so beautiful in theory, and make it a real practice in our busy mornings, our stressful days, and our exhausted nights? The secret is not in trying to be perfect all at once. The secret lies in the repetition of small, conscious choices. First, learn to notice your resistance. During this upcoming week, pay close attention to your body and your mind when something slips out of your control. Observe the tightness in your chest, the tension in your shoulders, the internal monologue of complaining. Just observe it. Do not criticize yourself for it. Awareness is the light that dissolves automatic reactions. Second, create a small space. Between the event and your reaction, take one deep physical breath. In that tiny second of silence, remember the fire. Remember that you have the choice right now. Let the wind blow you out, or use the wood that was just thrown at you. Third, change your mental vocabulary. Stop saying, I have to deal with this. Start saying, I have the opportunity to practice with this. The difference between a heavy obligation and a liberating training session is simply the lens through which you view the situation. And finally, start small. Do not try to apply Amor Fati for the very first time on the biggest trauma of your life. Practice in heavy traffic. Practice when you spill your morning coffee. practice with the unexpected rainstorm, when you train the muscle of active acceptance on the small things, you build the inner solidity required to sustain the weight of the massive storms when they inevitably arrive. Living with Amor Fati does not mean that life will become easy. It means that life will become rich. It means that nothing, absolutely nothing, can be thrown at you that you cannot utilize. You stop wishing for an easier life, and you start becoming a stronger human being. You stop being a hostage to the world, and you become your own sculptor, using the inevitable blows of existence to chisel the masterpiece of your own character. Reality, in all its unpredictability, its severe beauty, and its unavoidable challenges, is not something to hide from. It is the training ground for our souls. Embrace it, love it, and let it transform you. Philosophy is not a destination, it is a daily practice. It is the art of transforming the heavy lead of our daily problems into the gold of wisdom and character. If this message resonated with you, if it brought clarity to the challenges you are facing right now, we invite you to continue this journey with us. Subscribe to the new Acropolis USA Atlantic channel and turn on notifications. Leave a comment below sharing. What is the obstacle in your life today that you can start transforming into fuel? How can you apply Amor Fati this week? Like this video so this message can reach more people who need stability in uncertain times. Remember, you do not control the wind, but you can always adjust your sails.